Alright, in this video I will be replacing this old floodlight that is now broken. Well, it's not really broken. The bulb died on it, and I have sort of a policy in this house right now because it's such a money pit that I'm waiting for things to break or for parts to require replacement, and then I'll sort of replace things. Otherwise, I'll be just replacing everything. So instead of going and finding a new bulb for this, I'm just going to replace the light and be done with this thing. The light is lower than it should be, and I think the old owners just put a deck on top of these stairs. So previously, probably when that light went in, it was at the right height, but now that they put a deck here, it's at the wrong height. I'm going to replace the deck too, so I'm not too concerned about the height, though it is about a foot to a foot and a half lower than I would want it. So to get this thing off, there's just two little nuts that need to come off first. And before ripping the whole light down, I'm just going to remove all the glass bits so I don't break that, and pull the bulb out as well. And before messing around with any of the wiring stuff, I'm going to test the light, find out if it's hot. So there you go, you can see that there is current running to the device right now. Go into the basement and kill that breaker. So very important to turn off the breakers, especially if you don't really know how things are wired, because it was done 30 years ago and you weren't here. So now the power is off to this thing, so I'll remove it. Open-ended box wrenches or a spanner might be a better way to go to remove this light, but because I really don't have the time or patience to go find one, I'm just going to use a adjustable wrench. And before I try and pull everything out, you can see that the mounting plate is a little bit gummed up with silicone and rubber and stuff like that. So I'm going to remove that before I remove the light, just so I can get that mounting plate off. And to remove the old silicone, I do use a few things. Mainly I'm using this oscillating multi-tool with a scraper attachment. It does a good job. I also come around with something called Goof Off, and I rub the silicone a little bit, and that helps get some of the silicone off as well. Just sort of off camera, I did take off that mounting bracket, but there's just two screws holding it on, so nothing too special. And then I just pulled the wires out, removed the wire nuts, and then the grounding wire is actually screwed right into the back of the device box, which is acceptable, I suppose. One thing I noticed here is this device box has actually only got 3 sides in it. So I do add a side to that. I don't know if that's code anywhere that you can actually run it with 3 sides and not 4, but anyway, that's what's up. That's what they had. I opened the box, didn't do a big reveal here. No big ASMR box opening or anything like that. In the box, you get the light, you get some morettes and some screws, and then you get this mounting plate. So I've already put the mounting plate on. One thing I would point out, I saved the old screws that were on the old mounting plate. Always save those screws because sometimes they don't fit with the new ones. And you can see I jammed a new side plate in there. It's not a perfect fit, but it's better than nothing, I think. So I did make that one addition. And then obviously I made sure that the mounting plate was level. If I can make one good point, if you take those old screws out of your device box, don't immediately throw them in the garbage, because I have found that I need them more often than not. Before I finalize everything, I am going to trim some of the vinyl siding back, and the reason is that at the bottom of the vinyl siding there's a hard vinyl piece, and that obviously prevents the light from going as deeply as you would want it to go. So I'm going to trim those hard bottom edges off so that the light fits flatter against the wall and is recessed into the vinyl just slightly, and then I'll come by with some silicone and fill in the gaps so that there's no water that gets in behind the light. So to cut the vinyl back, I'm also using the oscillating multi-tool, but instead of having a scraper attachment to it, I switched the scraper attachment for little saw attachment, and it cuts right through this vinyl, no problem at all. Obviously, try to be careful. My house doesn't have Tyvek or Typar. I guess this is before that product was out, so it's all roofing felt or felt paper in behind here. So just be careful not to cut through that as well. And just to note, I am wearing safety glasses and I do wear hearing protection when using the multi-tool, because it is actually pretty loud. It is surprisingly loud, actually. And that's pretty much everything I cut out. So you can see the mounting plate there, and you do need to adjust the screws that actually fasten the light to the mounting plate, because they might stick out a little bit too far, and you just need to tighten that nut up. Probably in the future I'll raise this, maybe 2 or 3 pieces of siding up, but right now I'm just going to leave it. Definitely I started with one screwdriver, and then I've slowly accumulated a whole bunch of tools here as this job progressed. So you need to check with your local building codes and electrical codes for sure. Definitely I'm not doing an electrical tutorial, but for wiring this in, I just took the grounding wire off the light, attached it to the ground screw that's on the mounting plate. Some places might say that that's adequate for grounding it, as long as the grounding wire that goes back to your breaker box is also grounded to the device box. But I also took a Marette and tied that to the grounding wire as well. So it's connected two ways. And then I just connected the white neutral wire to the white wire on the light, again with the Marette or wire nut that they supplied. And then I took the hot wire and attached it to the black wire on the light. And that's it. Pushed everything back into the device box. And I lined up the light so that the mounting screws would go through it, obviously. And then it comes with some black nuts that go on top of the mounting screws. And then when it's done, it's going to look something like that. So pretty tight to the vinyl. I think the cut job turned out pretty good. And that is pretty much that. So I'm going to go into the basement, turn the breaker back on, and I want to make sure it works before I seal it up with some silicone caulk. So obviously it works, and the light switch works, and everything's good to go. So for the silicone, I used this Mono Silicone Pro. Now, being a gentleman who knows his skill limitations, I'm not going to be caught trying to work caulk on the internet. So I will skip that, but suffice it to say, I put the caulk around the light, and then I took my finger and wiped it off. So it looks like that. And that'll make sure that no water or bugs or anything get in behind. And one point, I did not caulk the bottom of the light, so if water does get in, it could flow out. And that's what it looks like at night. So it isn't the brightest light in the world, for sure, but I don't want it to necessarily be the brightest light in the world. Once I start doing the deck, I'm going to get some low voltage stuff, and then you can see I've already got some solar stuff around, but I'll probably replace that and change it out. So I just need a basic light. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.